Hey everyone, now that we have investigated how to handle the sine and cosine curves, the way you handle tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant is very similar. You need to pick out a basic cycle to use and then replicate that with substitution, begins cycle and end cycle like I've shown you in the earlier videos. So here, for example, you see I've given you the graph of tangent. I've highlighted in red the two asymptotes, x equals negative pi over 2 and x equals pi over 2. The characteristics of the tangent graph between the asymptotes are, from left to right, in the middle there's an x-intercept, and the curve increases from left to right. Okay? So bearing that in mind, we're going to look at graphing tangent of 1/8 x, which we know will be a horizontal stretch from our previous experience, but we'll see it in the math that we do. We can find the period from there and so forth. Note that the period of tangent of x, and therefore also cotangent, is shorter by half than sine, cosine, secant, or cosecant. Okay, so I'm going to take this guy, tangent of 1/8 x, and I'm going to say, all right, it begins a cycle. Any cycle will do, but I will use the one starting at negative pi over 2. And I will also use the one ending at positive pi over 2. Now in each case, if I solve for x, I would multiply both sides by 8. And we would see a new cycle beginning at negative 4 pi. Likewise, we'd see a new cycle beginning at positive 4 pi. Okay? And if all I want to know, if the question just terminated at the period is the absolute value of where you end the cycle minus where you begin the cycle. In other words, the net horizontal length, which in this case is 8 pi. So if I have to pick out a graph of this guy, then I expect to see an asymptote at x equals negative 4 pi and x equals positive 4 pi. I expect to see between those two the graph to increase from left to right, and in the middle of those two, so the middle is still x equals 0, I would expect to see an x-intercept. Okay? Alright, so let's take a moment and absorb that. You should graph like replications of this on your paper. And then let's look at the multiple choice answers. As far as the answer to the question, find the period, that's 8 pi. But as far as graphing the equation, we need to do that by hand, and let's take a look in just a moment. Okay, so here are our choices. Let's remember our basics. We want to have an asymptote at negative 4 pi, an asymptote at 4 pi, an intercept at 0, 0, and we also need to increase from left to right through 0, 0. Now, that alone leads me, the increasing from left to right, to rule out this guy and this guy. Okay, now what about the other two? They do seem to go through 0, 0, and they do seem to increase from left to right. Okay, but if the asymptotes are at negative 4 pi and 4 pi, then where are your intercepts? Okay, so if we have asymptote intercept in the middle, asymptote, then where's the next intercept? Well, these are 4 pi apart, so the next intercept would be at 8 pi. The next asymptote would be at excuse me, wrote that down wrong, at 12 pi. And you're kind of following this pattern all the way through. All right, so now they both have 0, 0. The hallmark here is the following. If this intercept is 16 pi, then this asymptote is 8 pi, and that automatically rules this guy out. But just to verify that we're really clear about this, we have an intercept at 0. Our next intercept should be 8 pi. Our asymptote should be 4 pi. And we're good to go. My suggestion is never look at the multiple choice answers until you've actually drawn the graph yourself.